Coming up on The Returned.
I was out of my body. I end up at what I call a stadium. All my senses were just intensified. Hundreds of thousands of people are in the stadium. Everybody was floating. And all of a sudden I hear,
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. The truth always follows you back. Hi, and welcome to The Returned, a place where we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and lightworkers from around the world. Today, we sit with Holly Porter, who, while in the hospital, hovered between life and death and experienced not only one near-death experience, but a profound spiritual encounter and a message she believes was given directly from God. Holly, welcome to The Returned.
thanks for having me, MJ.
Oh, you're so very welcome. Before we get into the conversation, I'd like to ground ourselves in who you were before this experience. What was life like at that time? And also, did religion or spirituality play a role in your life?
I'm most proud that I'm a mom. We have 8 adult children and we now have 19 grandkids. I think that's it. We'll see. And I was raised by 2 entrepreneurs, and so that's always been in my blood. And I've had 12 startup companies, but I was always really busy. I was president or chair of about every organization in the town I lived in. I ran for political office, just always that busy, busy, busy. A lot of lessons looking back, learning from that. And I was raised very religious. So I would consider myself religious, spiritual. And then after this shift, the opposite, spiritual, religious.
Would you be able to take us through the moment where you felt you're crossing or leaving your body for the first time, or whichever one comes first?
I know. I'm thinking, gosh, so you talk with people on your podcast, out of body, spiritual, transformative, and near death experiences. I didn't know for 2 years after that those were even different. Like I had all of them. I had a whole bunch of out of body experiences. So leading up to that, I was in the hospital with COVID, a 70-day stay. And I was intubated 2 times, had the trachea, had sepsis, and a couple other life-threatening infections that could have taken me out at any moment. And so out of the 70 days, the first 3.5 weeks, it's interesting how you can pinpoint certain things because I didn't know what was up or down in the hospital. Like a month went by and they were asking me what the date was, what I thought it was. 30 days had gone by. And so I was clueless. So the events happened about the first 3.5 weeks. I had all those experiences in that time. A lot of times I was in a coma, sometimes paralyzed coma, sometimes not. And honestly, I loved being in a coma, not just because I had great experiences. There were some creepy ones, but I could define a bad dream or just a dream. I could define, oh, that's an out of body. Like knowing the differences now, I know what each feeling was, and I can say, oh yeah, that's what that was. If we're going to label it, right? And so the out of body thing started immediately. Like I started having those right away. I never went back in time. I mean, I never went forward in time. I always went back in time and sometimes present time. And I went back later, in the out of body. I guess I'll talk about that first. That's coming up. So the out of body experience that I would go to a little town called Perwin, Utah. I had no idea why I'd end up there. It was interesting because there was a house there. It's a very, very little tiny pioneer home in Utah, only about 15 minutes away from where I live right now, ironically. And I knew I'd been there before because we had a kids' cousin camp when my kids were little. And I knew it was a relative home. The city owns it now and it's a museum. So you can go tour it. It's been remodeled a couple times. So I knew that I had been there but I didn't know like how that person was related to me till after I did some research, and it was my great 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 grandfather. And so I thought maybe that's what it was, but I didn't know at the time. I just knew I had been there. Um, there was all kinds of experiences that happened there. There was this really creepy staircase that like spiraled down because it's an old home built. I mean, actually, when I went back there a couple years later, I got my nerves up, went back in, and that same staircase, the original staircase, was still there. So, like, when you get confirmation later in real life, it's like, okay, that wasn't a dream, that wasn't a nightmare, that literally was there because the dirt floor was still there. When you look down the stairs, it kind of like spiraled around and you could see a dirt floor on the bottom of it. And it was just, there was some really scary things that happened during that time, but it was 165 each years ago. So that's how far I was going back.
Oh
Um,
my.
and it was wild. I mean, there's so many things to the story that I'm putting together. It's been, 4.5 years. I know people they say you can unravel for 10 years, and there's still things that come up. I was told later in a hypnosis session, which we can talk about, more will be revealed to you when the time is right. And so I was at peace with that. Normally that would make me crazy. My personality is like, I got to know everything and I got to know right now. And when I was told that, it was just like this peace came that, yeah, you're right. I couldn't have handled everything I would have been told or figured out in the beginning because long COVID hit me after COVID. So I was sick for a very long time. I still have what I call relapses and setbacks with it. I can even tell, like today, my voice is different. I can't sing anymore. I was a singer, and
Oh.
2 intubations and a trachea. I guess they say there's no damage, but obviously I can't sing. I can sing the blues. I take that back. I can sing the blues.
Mm.
It's lower,
Yeah.
but a lot of losses happen when you go through these things on top of all the blessings, and you really just have to focus on like those blessings.
How about your first near-death experience?
So the near death, which is interesting because the spiritual one felt near death too, and I've been told by people that
Mhm.
that was a near death too, whatever. But they're all labels, right? They're just experiences. So the near death, okay, how that came about was I I know exactly when it happened. It was in between, or it was just before they extubated me. So they intubate you. When they took me off, it's called extubation. It was just before they extubated me the first time. And I know that very clearly. Um, when I would leave in my experiences, ironically, I was I was coherent enough to know that I had to take my bed with me. That if I didn't take my bed, I might not get my body back. Like my body's in that bed. And if it doesn't come with me on this journey, I'm just going to bring it along because, if we get separated, there might be a problem. I mean, so like I was like kind of losing it, but yeah, I was smart enough to realize, no, my bed's just going to come with me, which meant my body was in my bed and I was out of my body. Right. So it would go
Gotcha.
on these journeys. So the near death was the same way, except this time I was being rolled down in my bed, down the hospital corridor of the hallways. And I remember as I was being rolled along, I could kind of like see other beds were being rolled down the hallways too. And I know now, like looking back, those were other people dying in the hospital because half of the people were dying. They had the Delta version, and it was really a scary time. So as I'm going down there, I pass the reception area and I start shaking my finger at them, telling them, I rescind my DNR. I rescind my DNR, which means do not resuscitate. So I must have been also aware that wherever I was headed, if I died, they wouldn't bring me back, right? Um, and so as I go down to the end, we end up at what I call a stadium. And it was like your biggest, way bigger than like the biggest football stadium. And all the beds got rolled into the skyboxes above because we were in beds. We couldn't sit in the stadium, right? And so then I get put there, and then there's this like pause of time that's why I end up doing the hypnosis session later, because there was just this gap where all of a sudden I'm out of my bed and I'm in the stadium now. And now I call it the Stadium of Light because it was the brightest lights or light, I should say, not necessarily lights. It felt like lights, like staring, And what was so interesting about the light was that it, I had lost, I like all five senses when I'm sitting there in the hospital bed, and I had lost, taste and smell from COVID. They tie your hands to the bed when you're on a ventilator, so I couldn't touch anything. I'm past legally blind naturally, so without contacts or glasses, I couldn't see who anyone was unless they were 8 inches in front of my face. And then they had the hats, the gloves, the capes, all yellow. Most of them wore glasses, even if they didn't wear glasses, just for protection. So like everybody looked the same. Hearing, the ventilator took like 90% of my hearing away. They could never tell me why, but everybody sounded garbled, like the Charlie Brown school teacher, that wah, wah, wah. That's what everyone sounded like. So like, put me in a coma, wake me up when it's over. We're good. That's kind of was my thing. So when I'm in the stadium of light, I'm like, all my senses, like it was like everything were just intensified. And the knowing of everything was instant. It was telepathic, but it was like you could have like, it was like I'd have a thought, but I already had the answer. It was that fast. I don't remember having a ton of questions because I was just amazed at what I was seeing, what I was feeling. So I would say hundreds of thousands of people are in the stadium, but I could see feet. So I knew nobody was sitting down. Everybody was floating. And I remember, I was just in such awe watching in that film. There was never a thought of why I'm here. I call it the gift of all knowing. Like before this experience, I always had the gift of knowing, not a psychic thing, but like people that have that gift, which I feel like is a gift. People ask them all the time, well, how do you know that? I always got asked that. Well, how do you know that? I don't know. I just knew. And in this space, it was like the gift of all knowing. Like you just knew everything. And so I'm just in that positive energy. There is not a negative thought I could have ever thought of in that space. And all of a sudden I hear music, and it was like the most angelic sound I had ever heard. And it's coming from all four directions. And I love music and I love to sing. And then they started singing, and probably that all knowing, I knew the words because I hadn't ever heard any of the songs, but I knew the words to all of it. And then so I'm just like enjoying, just really, really enjoying this space. And then it's like another little skip, like gap. And I end up in what I would call my life review. And for me, that was like sitting, watching a play. It was like, I was like, almost like just sitting there and it was being performed in front of me. That's how I felt like it was. But I only saw good. And I didn't question it later. I questioned it in the hypnosis session I did. I questioned it because I thought about it later and I thought, but there I'm just, like I said, you don't have a negative thought. It's just everything is so good and so much joy and so much love and so much peace. It's like every good word you can think of, you're experiencing, but all at once. So like you don't have the process of a thought that would be bad. So I just am enjoying watching, and it was so many reminders, and it was like, oh, I really was a good person because that's all I saw. I did plenty of naughty things. Don't get me wrong. That's what I was experiencing, was only the good, and the service I gave and the love I showed. And then in that experience, that I was told two things. I was told to go start a nonprofit, and I was given the name Adventure Bucket Wish. Again, I didn't question anything. I'm not there to be in charge of anything, right? I'm just there to observe, listen, and learn and absorb whatever I needed to. I wasn't given a mission. I was just given the name. And then I was told I had just pitched a new company called Retreat R&R. It wasn't incorporated yet, but it was a concept. And the day I found out I had COVID, which was a week before I went in the hospital, I got up so sick. I was already sick for 2 days, but I just thought I had the flu. I never thought I had COVID. And I got up, showered, went and pitched about to 9 people online this company idea. Well, I wanted to partner with them because they had a billionaire backer. And so I was super excited about that, right? So it was really interesting that in my near death, I obviously that was top of mind. I was really excited, to have this company happen. It was a world changer company. It was going to be like an Airbnb booking and hosting site for retreats. And it didn't exist. And I was excited to have a tech company. So like that's been in the works for a long time. Um, anyway, I was told don't partner don't partner with them. It's not the highest and best thing to do for the company. It needs to be yours and move forward, like without them. And it's so interesting looking back now that it's been 4.5 years later, when you start just looking at things in the whys, because I was a little bummed, I have to say. But I also wasn't going to mess with that energy. It was definitely the higher energy that I've ever had. Um, so then I didn't get an option. I got told those two things and then I was just sent back. Like I didn't even get a choice. I was a little perturbed about that as well, I have to say, because honestly, I probably would have stayed if I would have had a choice. So I share with a lot of people that have lost loved ones. Why on earth or why in heaven would you choose to come back to earth if you got a choice? I mean, but I was told to do these things. And so, and I mean, sure, I'd have missed my family, but jokingly, I had adult kids. They don't have to listen to me anymore. I always just figured I could do more for them on the other side than I'm doing for them here. So there you go. But I just ended up waking up, of course, in a lot of pain in my earthly body and very disoriented. I don't know if I would label myself scared. There must have been some of that going on because my sister Jill, so my husband wasn't allowed to come in the hospital for 3.5 weeks. So the day I got the trachea, which was when all these experiences happened, the day I got the trachea is when he was able to come because he had COVID. I brought it home to him from a conference. And so he couldn't come in and he could only stay for a couple hours at a time because he would just, he was on oxygen and he wasn't healthy enough. And they would only let one person every 24 hours be with me, which gratefully, just before that, if we remember, nobody was allowed in the hospital. So people died alone. So I would have died without people there. My two twin sisters lived in the same town as me. They literally just 24/7. They knew intuitively that I needed somebody there all the time, maybe for accountability for the medical staff because they were so overwhelmed. But I don't know. I think just to know you had that support, I think that's just ingrained in me that I love having support from people. I love giving support too, but I love having it. They just knew so many things. Well, my sister Jill was there when I woke up and I so I have the ventilator, so I can't talk. I don't know how they were so in tune with my communication, like how they figured out anything. I don't know because I couldn't talk and I could barely, lift my hands or anything. I couldn't. I mean, when I could lift my phone later, it was like a miracle. When I could lift my iPad to watch, something, it was a miracle. Like so many things would happen, but she went and grabbed the paper that had the alphabet on it and that I could point to letters and it took forever because I just had no energy. So I start, because she could tell something was up. Something was definitely up with me. And I started spelling on there KID. And she's wanting to help me because it's so exhausting for them too, I'm sure. And she's, oh, kids, you need me to tell your kids something? And she knew that wasn't it. I don't know if I shook my head or what, but she's like, you kept spelling NAP. And she's like, when I realized you spelled kidnap, she said, oh, I looked around. I was like, she had ran an errand because I guess I was doing better. That's how come I woke up, because I was doing better. And she said, I ran an errand, came back, and she was just like, I wanted to like throw up. I was like, what? Scared because they were my protectors, She's like, what happened while I was gone? She said, right as soon as you communicated that to me, the doctor and the nurse came in to extubate me for the first time. And she said, so when they got it out, she said, you could talk, not very well. It was very raspy and stuff, but she goes, you had a lot to say. I'm like, I bet I did. And, but the thing was, there were still spirits in my room, at least 3 that I can tell you. I realized quickly nobody could see him but me. And the nurse and doctor went out, and I remember her opening the closet and the bathroom and the drawers, like showing me nobody's here, And so I was like, okay, whatever. I'm obviously the only one that can see this. And it was like, I just was like, why did I feel kidnapped? Like, why would I come back from this
Mm.
experience and say I was kidnapped, which I found out later, by the way. So
Mhm.
I, anyway, so that was like the actual near death experience before I got the rest of the story, which I'm so grateful I got. But that was like the actual near death from there.
So you felt like you were kidnapped when you were in your NDE. Is that because you were first going down the hallway?
Um, no, well, now I know, okay, so 2 years later, well, let me tell you what led up to that. So I know there's so many like stories here within the story. So for 2 years, well, immediately I was sick for a long, long time. I was on oxygen for a long time, like real pretty sick for about a year and a half after. But about the first 3 to 4 months, I was determined to do what I was told. Like I was like, I'm not messing with that. And 4 months, I had the nonprofit, I had the 501(c)(3) applied for, I had it both my companies incorporated, and it was like not just one. I mean, one company is enough, but it was just like, and then I had to figure out the mission, and it was interesting because I didn't really feel like I had to figure it out. It was
Mm.
I chose the mission to stand for people with long COVID because it was a new
Mhm.
thing. It was underserved. There was 100 million people suffering, 200 symptoms attached to long COVID, which is everything. And my body, I mean, here the diagnosis has just started piling up, on me during this time. So I mean, I had 9 doctors. I went from being perfectly healthy person, no drugs or medication, nothing, to walking out of the hospital on 12, which I should say I
Wow.
slowly got off of. I feel like I fastly got off of, but I'm a super holistic person, so that was just tough. I mean,
Mm.
the hospital had no records on me when I walked in there. I mean, zero. The first 30 days, I remember they told me I had like 422 records just from being in there. So it was wild. But I I don't know how. Well, I do know how. I had a lot of help getting these companies incorporated, like just being in the right mindset to do that, to even do any of that. I mean, I was experienced. It was, I had several
Mhm.
startups underneath me, so I knew how. It's just like the fact that I did it was another miracle that I got them done. Right about the time they both got incorporated, my life, I call it 2 years of hell. It wasn't quite 2 years, but I say 2 years of hell. Everything was awful. Like you would think, like almost every relationship, minus my husband, a couple close friends, couple siblings. I'm from a family of 9 kids. We have 8 children that are adults. You would think they would all gravitate towards you because you almost died. And it was like I repelled everybody. It was just the
Mm.
weirdest thing. Like I prayed every day I would have died. I was like, why did you save me to put me through this? Like, and now I look back and I think, and I will approach things differently now with the question, what is it I need to learn out of this experience to get through this faster? Because it sucks. You know, it's like, let me learn whatever I need to learn fast because 2 years was off. I mean, it was like taking
Mm.
every bad day I had ever had, timesing it by 100. And that's how heavy everything felt every day. Awful things were happening. There are so many things that were happening that were just heart wrenching situations. I'm not a crier and I cried every day,
Mm.
every day for those
Wow.
2 years. So as I'm coming out of that, that's when I found the IANS conference. So International Association for Near Death Studies. And I ended up going to that. And all of a sudden it was like there were answers. There were the labels, out of body, spiritual transformative experience and near death. Like I was like, check, 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 check. Oh, I had all those. Okay. Now what do I need to know? And so I was just in that space where I was so vulnerable and so raw from those 2 years that I was just ready for some good. I was ready for
Yeah.
love, because I felt like
Yeah.
going from where I was to 2 years of that, I was just like wanted to get back. And so I came home and that's when I called my mentor. He had trained me, been 10 years now. So at the time it had been, 4.5 years. he trained me in hypnosis, so I knew the process. But I specifically only wanted the hypnosis session on my near death experience. I remembered the out of body experience. I remembered clearly the spiritual transformative experience, but the near death, I was like, there's some gaps in this. And I knew I had to write another book, which I was not really interested in doing. I already had, like, at that time, I think I had 13 books already that were either anthologies where I was part of somebody else's or they were mine. And I knew I had two more. I knew I had one for the near death story, which I just launched last year, 11/11, which is also significant to the
Ooh.
story. And I know I have another one that's for all the philanthropy work that I'm supposed to do at the end. So I feel like out of this, I ended up getting this life Bible handed to me, so to speak, with the end written. And I just have to
Mm,
fill the in between. It's like, who gets that? I mean, it's pretty cool to know that if I do what I'm supposed to, this is the result. And I know that.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, love that part. So I have this hypnosis session, and this is where it kind of ties in the story that I just told about the near death. So he takes me, I end up in this space. So everything I saw in the hypnosis session was not what I remembered. So, was my intention, that was what I wanted. Hypnosis, you can wake up at any time. You can open your eyes. I wanted that experience. So I wanted to be there, and I wanted, even though some of it was a little scary too. So I end up in this in between place now. So it's not dark and it's not light. The dark was on the right side. The light was on the left side. Um, Ironically, I've been talking to him again, the hypnosis, or my friend that's the hypnotist. And we're going to do another one because he's like, I think there's more. And I go, I do too. So I'm like kind of excited to do another one because this was so powerful. People are scared of hypnosis, but there's nothing to be
Yeah.
scared of. I just,
I actually want to do that too.
it healed my
Yeah.
heart
Yeah.
from that 2 years,
Mm.
like that.
Oh,
Everything changed after that. It was almost like having another NDE, even though I don't want to compare them, but it was that powerful for me. So there
wow.
ended up being an entity in there. So just to tell you some summary of it. His name was Darby. We did speak to him. My friend really had my back. It felt good after those 2 years to really know somebody had my back. He argued with them because Darby, wanted my light. And Darby couldn't go to the light and he couldn't have it for himself. So he wanted mine. So he took me. I think that's where the kidnap came in. That's when I kind of put that together. I thought, oh my gosh, he waited till I was vulnerable enough and took me and brought me to this in between place. So after a while, the light always wins.
Oh,
After a while of them bantering, I could feel that brightness in the stadium, that powerful light was coming. And Darby says, the light's coming to take her and I'm not going to be able to stop it. And so, my friend's like, well, then let her have her light. It's not yours. You stole it, and it's not yours to have. I mean, this was this whole banter thing with them. And so he couldn't do anything about it because the light wins. So I feel like I had this spiritual intervention that got me back on track. And so Darby goes away. I go forward. I look, and on my right side, which remember was the dark, there way far back, there's a mountain and it had one eye on it. And I saw it twice. And I remember feeling protection of some sort. I don't have the rest of that story. I just know because it was on the dark side, but it was also facing the light. And that's how I felt like it was like AJ had my back. It was like maybe it had my friend. I mean, I was just felt like I was protected.
mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
remember the second time I saw it thinking, you're seeing that for a reason. I remember saying, noted. Like it was like, gotcha. I know you're important. I don't know what you mean, but you're important. So then I walk in front and I'm going forward and there's a tree. And I was like, so much peace seeing that tree. This is why. When I went and created Retreat R&R and incorporated the company, was doing some branding, I knew intuitively that my logo needed to have a tree on it. And I didn't know why, and no one questioned it. And I just said, hey, I need to have the favicon and the logo to be a tree. When it came back, I actually interviewed the guy later because I was like, what was your thought process when you created this tree? Because it came back and it had 11 leaves and 11 roots on the tree. So 1, 1, 1, 1. By the way, I got out of the hospital 1/1/11. So of course that was my
Wow.
book launch day. My birthday's 1/1. There was just so many synchronicities to all of that. Love numerology. And I was just like, never changed a thing on the logo. I was like, that's it. This is it. So when I saw the tree, it was like, I call it a God gift. It was like another healing of the heart saying, you went and created this company. You did what I asked you to. Here, you got this logo. You knew it needed to be a tree. Here's your tree. Here's your
Uh-huh.
pat on the back saying, well done. You listened. You did what you were supposed to do. That's how it felt.
Okay.
So the next thing, I go over to the light and I end up now in the light. And I forgot to say, in the in between, there was like all this matter. So in the stadium of light, it was like fog. Remember how all my senses were really on? But the light was so bright that I could see through it. There was almost like this fog everywhere, but I could see through it. So I forgot to mention that before. So when I go into the in between, it's like that same stuff, but now it's
Mm.
like icky. It's like dark colors, shadowy colors. And they're swirling around, but they would swirl and they would form a heart, and the heart would float to the left, which was where the light was. And I remember thinking, oh, everything's attracted to the light. Of course, even in the dark, we're attracted to light. So I remember seeing that. So when I get back over to the light, now they start, the hearts become like a pink rose color. And like the nonprofit I was told to do. So I had that incorporated. Um, the heart, and when we had our gala, the heart, I did rose colored quart hearts in every little gift bag we gave the people at our first fundraiser gala. Same thing as the logo. I just knew it had to be in
Wow.
there. No one asked me, why are you putting a rose colored quart heart in there? I don't know. I just did. So when I go to the light again and I see it, it was like that other God gift saying, you went, you listened to what I said, you created this nonprofit, that here's your rose colored heart. It was just like that for me, it was so healing for me at that time. Like I was just
Mhm.
like that knowing the steps and the stuff I had to do after that 2 years of suffering. It was like, oh, so then I'm at my life review. So it's almost like I went backwards in the hypnosis session. Before I stopped at the life review and got sent back. Well, he took me and I just didn't remember any of that. So that's what was so amazing by it, is I got the rest of the story. He said more
Mm.
will be revealed to you when the time is right. Okay. So that's how come I keep getting things. Um, the life review now in the hypnosis session, I remembered, why am I not seeing the bad? Because I'm still only seeing the good. Okay. This is powerful. I did not see God, be clear, but I heard him plain as day.
Mhm.
And he said, I'm showing you the good because that's what matters. And I was just like, of course, what a God of love. I don't need to see the ick. I know it's there. I mean, it's smudgy. It's like, I don't need to see that. I
Yeah.
needed to heal at that time. So the whole thing about this session was so healing for me. And then he
Mm.
said some words to me that I want people to really, really lean into. He said, love them where they're at. And if I would have remembered those words before in the actual near death experience, it would have shifted that experience of those 2 years of hell. I would have reacted differently. Some of these relationships wouldn't have ended up not good. There was a lot of not good things happening. Um, but I needed that growth and I needed those lessons for the philanthropy that's in the end of the Bible story, my life Bible, that I was talking about. Like
Mhm.
I needed that to see the ick, because my big thing now is to be a check writer for the philanthropy work I want to do. Like I know all this that I'm coming and I'm creating now. It's never been about money for me, but I know I have to create a lot of wealth to be able to be a check writer. I don't need to be in the ick anymore. It's like, and knowing that it motivates me to keep going. It motivates me to, because I've always been about service, but now in the end, the money pays for a lot of service. It pays for a lot of
Mhm.
philanthropy. It pays for a lot of help, but I don't need to be in the trenches anymore because I went through that. I feel like I
Okay.
went through that. So that was a huge thing for me. Love them where they're at. It takes the judgment away.
That's beautiful.
You just react so much differently. So the spiritual one was the last one I had because it was the defining moment when I knew I was going to live. This is after, two intubations, the trachea, sepsis. No, actually, I got sepsis after this at the other hospital. So there were still challenges happening, but I knew I'd live. I knew I was going to make it through things. So what happened then was I have a cousin. She's kind of more like a sister cousin, we call her. She lived out of state, and everybody had me on every prayer list. I had friends all over the world because I was an international speaker. So they were hanging on to Facebook and the posts my sisters would put on there. That's the only updates people would get. Like, that's the only way they knew how to find out how I was. And she sent a text to my sister and said, I normally would share this kind of an experience. It was a spiritual experience for her in a text, but I know Holly's not doing very, very well right now. And she needs, will you read this to her? She needs to hear it. So I remember them reading it to me and thinking, oh, that's so sweet. Like, gosh, that's really special that she got that. Yeah, I remember that thought, right? And it was basically her praying for me, being surrounded by all of these passed on relatives of ours. She asked by name who they were. So she listed all that, this text. And I wrote the whole text in my book. It's part of it. And then I must have took a turn again for the worse, and they put me in a coma again. But then I remember being really, really angry. I was mad. And my prayers were changing at that time, because before you're laying there thinking, is this it? Am I enough? Was I good enough? Did I do enough? Did I serve enough? Like, did I leave a legacy? What kind of a legacy did I leave? Like, all these things are going through my mind as I'm laying there dying, right? Well, now my prayers basically like, okay, if you're not going to get me better, then get me out of here. Like, I'm done. I'm done fighting. I'm done with this. So it was kind of like me being a snot, and I was like mad that she got that experience. And I was like, why did she get that experience and not me? I mean, I was like kind of being, well, who usually comes and puts us in check in our lives when we're being brats is our mom. And my mom had just passed away about 17 months before this. And she had come to my side. She always came to my right side, but she was in the hospital with me a lot. But this is the first time she had talked to me that I remember. And this time, particular time, she came to my bedside and she said, it's not your time to go. She says, and you need to fight. And so when she said that, my brother, he had died in a really bad car wreck, same with his wife, like a year and a half before, and they had left four of my nieces and nephews, and it was awful. My grandbaby had died just 5 months before as a baby. So when she starts saying fight, all of my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, anyone I knew, had a relationship with, in white, came and surrounded my bed. So now they're above my bed, and they just start chanting, fight, fight, fight. But every time fight was said, a whole new group would come behind them. And now they're in street clothes. So it's my husband and my kids and my friends and my siblings and all these people I know, not the thousands, hundreds of thousands, like the Stadium of Light, but they just kept coming. And then there's all these people I didn't know, which I think were the people I was on the prayer list for, praying for me. And I saw that, and it was like, who am I not to fight? Look at the support I have. I mean, look how many people have me, like they're holding me. And it was just such a defining moment that all right, I got it. I just got to fight. Like, that was the word. I didn't even like that word, actually, by the way. And I actually commissioned a painting I had done. Took about 8 months to do it, to place everybody right. And I can only have 26 people in the painting, which was really hard to pick because I've just shared how big of a family I have. So it was really hard to know who's making the cut, I mean, it was really hard. And it's huge. It's like 6 foot by 4 foot. I mean, they're actually like actual head sizes in there. And it shows me in my bed, and then they're on like the side of me instead of the front of me because of the way they painted it, But my granddaughter, by the way, was an adult, but I knew it was her. She was at her best. And I painted her as a baby because that's the photo I had, and that's how I knew her, So I have my mom holding her in the painting. And it means nothing to nobody but me, but it's special to me. And I call it, the painting's called Fight. But yeah, it was just like to realize we just don't realize how many people from the other side have our back. They have us. We can't see them, but that's faith. That's the knowing that they're there. No matter what, they're there. Whether they're in front of us or behind us, they got us.
That's beautiful, Holly. That almost brought me to tears to hear, to be honest. I think that's so, so very special. And I do agree. If a lot of people knew how many were actually there for them that we
Yeah.
don't see, it's hard though also for people to, you know, blindly believe.
Hmm.
However,
Yeah.
channels like this and many others, it's really helping, and IANS as well. It's
Yeah.
really helping. All the books out there are really helping humanity get to
I
this
agree.
place where,
Mhm.
it's real,
Yeah. Well,
right?
it's real to the ones that had that experience. Other people still may
Exactly.
not believe it, or they
Mhm.
may
Yep.
think it's a dream, and that's okay. I can't be
It
attached
is okay.
to
Yeah.
that because this
Mhm.
was my experience and I know
Mhm.
what I felt and saw. I mean, even Darby just this year while I was writing my book, it's a personal development and spiritual book, which I didn't have before. I realized, and I mean, it kind of freaked me out. I was in my office when it dawned on me, more will be revealed to you when the time is right. And I remembered I like ran down and told my husband first because he knows the story. And my editor, I called her. I was like, oh my gosh, I just realized. Remember this story? And it was a story in one of my out of body experiences that was really, really creepy and scary. And I was in Parowan and I was in this room in the house. And it's like I could go back in time. It's like I could freeze time kind of. And I remember knowing something was going to happen. So I like rewinded myself. And then this person came in the room and I don't know. I remember I was really scared because they were dark. Like I felt scared. Um, and I could like feel their breath on me right here on my shoulder. Like ooh.
Mm.
And I remember something was going to fall in the room and break. So it's probably something glass or something loud. Cause I remember counting 3, 2, 1, boom. And I could hear him in my ear. If I saw him on the street today, I could pick him out of a lineup. And I mean, I know what that guy looks like. And he's dark. And he's in my ear goes, and shakes his head because I could feel it moving
Oh.
and it just creeped me out. So while I'm writing my book, it dawns on me because Darby was waiting till I was vulnerable enough to take. Dawns on me that Darby was in some of these out of body experiences, probably waiting for me to be vulnerable enough. I think that was
Right.
Darby in that experience. And I was just like, oh, so, and I call my editor and I didn't end up writing that part in the book because we were about done. We were just editing and I was like, I can leave that story out. I can be continuing later. But I remember telling her and she was like, of course she was creeped out. And Scott's like, my husband, he's like, oh my gosh, he goes, you're probably right. I mean, it just felt so right, even though it was so
Ugh.
wrong. But I thought,
It gives me
wow.
the creeps even thinking of
Well,
that.
and people have commented, I know like on other podcasts I've been on, I've read some of the comments that have said, well, like they're scared. They're scared of a Darby. They're scared of being that vulnerable. Well, if we're dying, we're vulnerable. Hello. You don't have control. When you die, right? And it's like,
That is
don't
right.
fear it. You know what I mean? Just live your life to the best you can be the best person you can be. And what is there to fear? If you end up where I ended up in the end, even people that have like dark near death experiences, or they call them hellish experiences, usually it's some kind of a mirror effect of their life, something they're going through. Because I've never, not that I've listened to tons of those because I don't really want to be attracted to any of those, but it seems like once they get the experience they had, they ended up okay. I mean, they're back, they're talking about it. So obviously, they're back. But the point is, don't live in that fear. Like, know that the light will win. That's, I guess, the message I want to say is the light wins in the end.
You're absolutely right. I 100% agree with that. Um, you've had quite a few experiences. I know we're not talking about all of them today. However, one of my first question is, why do you think you had these experiences? Or why do you think you had to have them?
Yeah. Okay, I will say, I mean, I've taught personal development. I've been a speaker and author for many years. I couldn't have told you like my real why. Like I never felt like I always thought I would die young. So of course I'm not that young anymore, but laying there, I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is it. I never was afraid to die. I'm definitely not now. But I never felt like I had a purpose. Like I do these visualizations 5 years in the future and I couldn't see it. And people would always say, oh, I can help you figure that out, right? Well, maybe they could help me, but nobody can figure out your purpose but you. Like it's you. So to come back with two definite things I was supposed to do, retreat R&R, I know now, is part of the story. It was because I've had to go through so much with that company. The software's still not done. I need another $1 million to get it finished. It's still so needed. But I learned so much in these last 4 years about that whole industry. You know, I did events and retreats for years, but like I saw the bigger picture. I saw the tech world. It's very masculine. It's very heavy to me. It's like I needed to learn those steps. I couldn't, more will be revealed to you when the time is right. I had to get it. I had to get everything in pieces for my brain to work and make it happen. I'm a go-getter. I'll do stuff. If I'm told, I do it. I mean, obviously I shared that, but it was like, why isn't this just easy then? If I was given the end result, why is it not easy? So the purpose came. I know the end result. I know it's for the philanthropy work that I'm doing in the future. I know that's my purpose, is to build what I'm building. I feel like I'm building this empire. I'm building this world, international changing business. While I was writing the book, I got another business idea and I was not real thrilled. I was in a really spiritual place, but I was like, I'd had 11 startup companies. I didn't need 12. And it was retreat related is why I said, I'm listening. Cause I was like, kind of like, why? You know, I had just made some shifts in retreat R&R. Phase 1 became phase 2. Phase 2 became phase 1 while I raised the money. And it was all so many changes. And then I paused all that to get the book done because I knew 11/11 of last year was when I needed to launch it. So everything kind of stopped and I focused, which is hard for me. I'm very ADHD. So like I literally, okay, you can do this. You can focus. You can meet a deadline. Not that I didn't meet deadlines. I wouldn't have had I have not been in that place. So I was like resistant, went down the rabbit hole to realize it was a retreat association, went down the rabbit hole to realize that there wasn't one. So there's estimated 2 to 3 million retreat leaders in the world, not counting the whole ecosystem of all the, retreat spaces or hotels for that matter. I mean, how luxury types, anything, the whole ecosystem, but 2 to 3 million retreat leaders. And there's not an association for them to belong to. There's no professional standards. There's no values set. Everyone's just winging it, doing their own thing. And that is a world changer. I mean, I was just like, I've been part of several associations, so I know what value they have and I know. And then I said, okay, stop. You can't do any more research on that until you get your book done and it launches. It was like, just stop. So I did. I set it aside. I knew it was going to happen. As soon as the book launched, I started working on it. I incorporated it. It's called International Retreat Association. Exactly what it is.
Wow.
And it's been the craziest ride because we are in the beginning stages. We will launch membership in April. I know I want it affordable for any retreat leader in the world. It's $111 for the whole year membership. I don't know an association that's set that price. But for me, that's the basic. We can have other things. We can have tiers. We're going to have founders. And it's like to know that 111 is the number that everybody can afford at some. If you can't, you probably shouldn't be in business doing retreats. I just feel like it's affordable for anyone. And there's no imposter syndrome behind it. There's nothing saying, like there is the question saying, pinching myself more saying, wow, you are so lucky because you know how many ideas God gives probably thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, the same ideas, but they don't take action. And it's like, I keep saying, why me? Or why did I get this idea? Why didn't I get it 4 years ago is what I want to know right now. Cause I've been through a lot. So I'm like, I learned a lot though. So it's like, it's all part of this bigger purpose. And it's like, this one, I want to say it's going to be so easy compared to what I've just been through the last, 4.5 years. So I'm so excited to where it's going to go and whose lives it's going to change. I mean, I know it is. It's just like going to be the most amazing thing. And in the end, I get to do the philanthropy work and write the checks for those causes that I know really need that help. I don't even know if that answered your question, but I feel like that's kind of,
It
yeah,
did. I do understand that calling. You
yeah,
know, I understand that calling. I had the same thing happened to me with this channel. Um, and as I told you earlier, I was very insecure at the beginning.
sure.
And I wasn't going to keep going. And then the voice came in and it comes above me. It's very,
Yeah.
not assertive, mean, but very, you know who it is. You
Yep.
absolutely know who it is. And it's kind of vibratory, it kind of flowed in for me. And I knew right away,
Mm,
okay. And I literally just pulled up the blankets. I'm not stopping. I'm keeping going
yeah.
because I can honestly say that for years I was asking, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
And I
So
wanted to
many
be
do.
more of service to people,
Yeah.
not that I'm doing some big holy service here,
Right.
but
You
I'm
are.
doing a
You
little
are. And
bit,
thank you for
I'm
listening to the
giving the
calling.
tools for people,
Yes.
um, and another thing I noticed is that I'm not just telling the stories or hearing stories, I'm part of the story. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I have my own story too, right?
Sure.
So I loved what you went through. I love that that's your why you believe that you were having those experiences. I was wondering, have you ever thought, were you living your truth, walking that path to its full potential before those experiences?
That's a good question. I I believe I thought I was with the
Mm,
information that I had. This is like being a parent. I look back and look at all the things. I mean, I tell a story about I was over the Rotary Club, right, which is an international organization. I was over 1,400 soccer players in this organization. Had four kids playing sometimes at four different locations on four different fields, and I was doing real estate still full time, and I owned a salon and spa. And I was like, all at once, right? I'm over all this, and I'm on the phone doing a real estate deal while I'm watching my kid's game, but I'm showing up and I'm there, but I wasn't present. And so I would say that was the biggest, like, hard lesson to realize. From the outside, it looked like I had everything figured out, but I was just in crisis mode all the time. You're living on the stress and the next thing and the next thing, and you're dealing with whatever's screaming at you the loudest. Which is what we do, right? What gets
yep.
done is what is like, and it's not a place. I mean, your nervous system shot, your vibrational side is off. It's like, how did I look like I had it all together when I was, but in that moment, I I was living my best life because I was loving my life. Like, for me, a true definition of success is so easy. It's happy. That's my definition. Happy. If I am happy, it's not about how much money I'm making, and it's not about how many friends I have, and what award I'm getting, whatever. Those are all great. It's nice to know people recognize what you do when you put in that kind of effort. And that's not what matters. Like, in the end, what matters is really how we're leaving people feeling. What kind of service are we
Mhm,
giving others? And are we loving them where they're at and taking that judgment
mhm,
away? It's just, so it's the feeling so different. So I would say now I just have more knowing and understanding. And of course, I'm not raising eight. I had probably six teenagers in the house at one time. So it was like, I'm not in that chaos as much. My life's a lot calmer, but I also am creating it to be a lot calmer because your brain works better, your emotion, your nervous system works better when it's calmer. And I just feel like that in that sense, I'm a different person. I'm still who I was, but I feel like I'm better. I'm a better version of who I was.
It sounds like you had a shift happen a
Yeah.
little bit,
Which
you
is
know?
why my book's called Near Death Shift, which you're hearing that word everywhere, which is
Yeah.
again,
Mhm.
God gives those ideas to so many people. And
That's right.
shift wasn't even, I had another book title for 2 years while I was working on things. I just changed it at the end. It came up. Shift stands for surrender, hope, intuition,
Mm,
faith, and transformation. And I
I
didn't have
love
that figured
that.
out until I was writing it. Like I was in such a spiritual mode. There were eight of the chapters that are the personal development I created from a program that I never finished 5 years ago when I was having live events. I had this program called 8 Means to Close the Gap to Prosperity. And prosperity wasn't about money then either. It was you can be prosperous in many things. And I realized that I didn't finish it because it was for now. It was for this book. All these relationships the last 11 years or so that I had while I was writing books and speaking, those are for now. Like all these relationships that I built, I spent thousands and thousands of dollars not monetizing really what I was creating and doing because I didn't have the why. I didn't have the calling. And it's like, but I did the groundwork and relationships are number one for me. I built those relationships. So now 10 years later, if I need something, you can bet they're there for me. Right. It's just like, wow. It kept opening up like, oh, that's why. Oh, that's why. So sometimes we're doing things, not realizing the why, not realizing the end result because we don't have a crystal ball and we can't see that. But if you look back, God has his hands in everything.
Oh, 100%, 150% on that. And sometimes it takes us slowing down
Mhm.
to
To speed up.
actually see,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Unfortunately, in your case, it wasn't such a great slowdown, but it was purposeful.
Do you know
So
people told me, "I think God put you in a coma in the hospital basically to get you to listen, to get you to slow down
I think,
because
well,
that
that's
wasn't your
kind of where I
mantra."
was getting to, because by the
So it's
sounds
like
of it, you're a very
yeah,
busy, busy, busy woman on the go, on the go, on the go, right?
yeah.
So that's kind of where I was going with that. That's
Mhm.
why I was thinking, I wonder if you needed to be a little slowed down so you would start listening,
Yeah.
right? I'm
I
going to
agree.
shift.
Yeah, that's a
I'm going to
shift.
shift to a different way. And I'm going to ask you, what or where are we? Like when we have a near death experience, an out of body experience, are we here still, right here in the hospital where you were?
Mhm.
Or do you think we go somewhere else?
Like our spirit?
Yeah. So when we
Yeah,
go and we have a near death experience and we experience all these places,
yeah,
where is that happening in your opinion? Is this happening
yeah.
here beside us? Or is it up there? Is it over there? Where would that happen in
That's a
your
good
opinion?
question. I would say just top of mind, not giving it any real thought. I would say it depends where you're going, first of all. Like my out of body experience, I know specifically I was in Parowan, Utah. Like I knew that, right? And I could go there
Mhm.
and I saw the staircase later. So like I know I was there. Even though my body was sitting in the hospital room. I mean, I went everywhere. My sister said, "You never left this room. Your surgeries, everything was in this room." That first, 5 weeks I was in the first hospital. And I'm like, no, I was like so defiant. I was like, I went everywhere. So, like in that case, I would say I went wherever I went in the out of body experience. The near death, definitely to a higher realm. I mean, I feel like that there's different planes of existence and
Mm.
I think, we could be having this experience on a different level somewhere else. I mean, it's interesting. I'm the type of person that doesn't have to overthink the thought. And it's like because I have the faith and I have the trust that it's all going to work out and I'm going to end up where I need to be in the end. Right. I'm not that people that are overthinkers. I have a friend that overthinks everything. She's worked on a book for probably 11 years while I've got 17 out now. Same time frame. Right. And not bragging. I'm just saying I'm a doer. It's like, don't overthink it. I mean, an attorney asked me about the International Retreat Association. Oh, you're okay just opening up your membership without everything being figured out? And I was so inspired, by the way, to have this answer. This was a phone call. And I said, yeah. I said, how often, this is the thought that came to me. I was so proud that I came up with it. I said, how often do you get Apple, eBay, PayPal updating their terms and conditions? All the time. Every day, probably I get some company sending me an email that you have to update your terms and conditions. I said, why can't we do that? Like, why do you have to launch, or why do you have to go do something or start a business? And you're like, nothing's going to be perfect ever. There's always something going to change. There's a relationship that's going to come up that's going to change your thought process. You can't do it scared and just do it. I mean, Nike said it, right? Just do it. It's like,
Yeah.
it'll figure it out on its way, and you can shift. Like, it's all right. It's all right.
I love that. I love the word, the shift. I love that word.
Yeah.
So, Holly, because I know people are probably wondering, I'm wondering anyways, how do you stay connected to what you experienced on the other side in your day-to-day life now?
Oh, I'm kind of hard-headed. So I have to remind myself, love them where they're at, because, people
Mhm.
do things that you don't like, and you just have to know that that's who they are, and it's not my place to judge them. It's my place to love them. And I do. I remind myself of things every day. When I start getting overwhelmed, that's when I'll have a little health relapse, and I realize, oh, God's telling me to slow down, because, I don't want to end up in the hospital again. That's for sure. But I think for people to realize that you don't have to almost die to truly live. Like, don't go through what I'm saying that for like any experience. When you watch somebody go through something that's hard for them, challenging for them, why do you have to repeat that and do it yourself? Like, why not learn from people by listening to like your podcasts and other personal development type things, so that you don't have to go through those? The smart people don't go through it. My magical number's 3. I usually have to make 3 times that same mistake before my head goes, oh, maybe I should go a different direction, make a different choice. I mean, don't be like that. It's like,
That
learn
is
from other
me
people.
too. I do the same thing.
It's
Oh my
crazy.
goodness. I know. What do you think, though, about humanity, or what do you think humanity is missing or misunderstanding right now?
Hmm. Um, I think there's so much judgment going on about what everyone thinks how things should be. And I feel like it goes just back to the love.
Yeah.
If we're loving them where they're at, that judgment's going to go away. Like, if you just remember those words, it should shift the energy. I told a therapist that, he's dealt with a lot of like abuse and things. And he said to me, this is almost a year ago, I'm going to see him again this next week on a business cruise. He said to me, he said, hate, I hate those people. And so I told him the love them where they're at story. And you know what? The next morning he sent me a message, and he said, you have changed my life with those words. He said, you're right. It's not my place. I mean, it literally, he went from hate, he's probably working on love, but the love them where they're at. I thought, wow, to have him shift that fast. And even this past year, he's mentioned it every time. He says, I'm never going to forget that. Never. And I thought, wow, okay, how many of us could be in that space and change how we react to people if we just take the judgment away?
Mm, wouldn't that be wonderful? I've been guilty of that. It took
Yeah.
me a long time to get to a place where I just stopped judging. It's really
Yeah.
difficult to do.
I still work on it
Um,
every day.
I
I have
do
to remind
too,
myself.
and I always try to I if I see something, I'm like, "Okay, what's tell me one thing beautiful about that person," or
Yeah.
one thing I just really try to change the way that I look at
Yeah.
things, and I think there's a lot of people working on that.
Uh,
My second to last question is, for those who feel disconnected spiritually, where would you suggest they begin?
hmm. I would say in a quiet space with no interruptions. First of all, I'm not a big meditator. My brain just goes 100 miles an hour all the time. So it's a little more challenging. what gets me in that space is I have a paid YouTube account for the reason I don't want the interruptions, and I listen in because of some long COVID sensory issues. I wear a mask with speakers in it at night, and I listen to binaural beats, affirmations all night long. So I feel like it's just like constantly in the brain. That's something that people can go get and get in that space. But I think, yeah, just getting quiet. I think that's
Mhm.
the biggest thing.
Turning everything off, right?
Yeah.
Just quiet. It's
Yep.
hard to do. Very hard to do,
Yes. Yes.
I feel. Holly, can you share any services, offerings, or published works that you may have and where people can find and connect with them?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of books you can find on Amazon just if you search my name. But of course, the one I'm most proud of is called Near Death Shift, What Dying Taught Me About Life, Business, and Purpose. And we even changed the mission of the nonprofit to Women Leading with Purpose, which goes perfect with our retreat stuff. That story's in the book. So many others that I talk about. It's very vulnerable. Yeah, I'd say neardeathshift.com if you want to go check that out. It gives you several options of how you can get it. If you order it from me, so I ship it personally, then I'll sign it. If not, you can get it on Amazon. But thank you.
Oh, oh, you're very welcome. We'll have all that information in the description box below. And
Thank
Holly,
you.
now comes to my returned signature question. I
Okay.
love this. I love this part because I like hearing what everyone says. So, everyone who returns comes back with a truth. What truth did you return with that you would want humanity to know right now?
Wow. For me, I think it was the bigger why that I'm more than I thought I was, and that I have I have a purpose, number one, because I struggle with that, but I have a bigger mission. But I also want to say, not everybody has a big purpose. A purpose that's huge for you could be, for instance, stay at home mom. You're raising the next president of the United States. And I've said that a lot to people because that's just as important, and that's your purpose and that's your why. You own that. Whatever you know in your heart and your gut that is your purpose, like just stick with that. I think it's just people think, oh, I don't have a purpose because I'm not changing the world. It's not everybody's purpose. We can't have the same purpose. Everybody can change the world one thing at a time. It can be small or big. So
Yeah. Every time someone brings something like that up, I think of loving. So if you just love someone,
mm,
you
yeah,
change the world. You know,
yeah.
sometimes that's what comes to mind. Holly, I want to thank you from my heart to yours for sharing something so deeply personal and very powerful. Your story doesn't just speak to what happens beyond this life, it reminds us how to live within this one.
Mm,
And I want to thank you so much for bringing your light and your truth to the returned.
thank you.
You're welcome. And to my audience, please let this be a gentle reminder that life is fragile, but it's also meaningful. Whatever we do in the time we're here truly means everything.
Mm.
Thank you for watching. And until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.